All right, we just had a bunch more people. We will begin. And good afternoon or good morning, depending upon where you are, everybody. This is the premiere edition of the NABT virtual meeting. I'm Jason Gold, the NABT president. And the purpose of this web-based meeting immediately is NABT's effort to keep everyone involved and posted as to what's going on, particularly with the coronavirus crisis and how it's impacting our work. And this is, of course, a very difficult period for our country and presenting challenges in so many different industries. And we're all facing challenges in our industry. The virus has all but shut down the economy, but of course, people are still filing Chapter 7s. And as we are on pause for the most part with respect to conducting 341, certainly in person 341s, again the cases continue to be filed. So we're obtaining a backlog pretty quickly. It is true, of course, many courts and U.S. trustees, regional U.S. trustees, have permitted liberal adjournments and postponements of 341. So we'll be discussing that today. Now, what the future will bring for all of us, we will see regarding the administration of our cases, including the effectiveness of these postponements, because they're postponing deadlines. Many places around the country, some of these deadlines are jurisdictional, and the question of whether that will be enforceable. But the immediate concern of Chapter 7 trustees, panel trustees like many of us, is the status of our own procedures. So that's what, again, we hope to focus on today. Our plan is to conduct this meeting weekly, if we possibly can, for the foreseeable future. Again, to keep all of you advised and to get information from you, get your experiences, and see if we can't gradually improve the process as we go along. So let me now introduce our two facilitators for this hour-long discussion. Both are veteran trustees and leaders of the Chapter 7 trustee community. First, you see Kelly Hagan. Kelly is a panel trustee. She's an attorney as well, admitted to practice in Michigan as well as Oregon. She's a recent past president of NABT, and she sits in as a trustee in Traverse City, Michigan, a beautiful place, which is in the Western District of Michigan. Besides her trustee practice, Kelly practices law and represents other trustees as well as state court receivers and others. And she served as a fiduciary in several other types of roles, such as Chapter 11, as a Chapter 11 trustee, and also as a liquidating trustee. Kelly's a University of Michigan graduate, one of the country's most thoughtful panel trustees, and importantly for our group, she runs a particularly well-organized trustee practice. Also with us is Gary Seitz. Gary is a partner in the law firm of Gellert, Scally, Buscannell, and Brown. It's a bankruptcy and commercial law boutique located in Wilmington, Delaware, and where Gary sits, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's admitted to practice in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Gary's a Chapter 7 panel trustee in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, and he is a current member of the NABT Board of Directors. Gary's law practice is heavily involved in all sorts of complex commercial litigation, mostly on the side of creditors, asset purchasers, and other bankruptcy trustees. He's a graduate of the University of Iowa Law School, and Gary holds a number of advanced degrees, including an LLM in Admiralty Law. You don't see a lot of those from Tulane University. And he also serves, like Kelly, as a Chapter 11 trustee. Gary serves in Delaware and Pennsylvania for those types of cases. Finally, joining us as our chief engineer today is the NABT's most valuable asset, Jennifer Brinkley. She's off screen, but she will be running this program in the background. So why don't we just immediately get started? Let me turn it over to you, Gary.
All right, thank you, Jason. And Jason, thanks a lot for jumping in so quickly to provide a forum for trustees to be able to get together and share their views in this troubling time. This is a new technology for me, and so I think we'll go through a few ground rules first before we get started. First of all, as some of you have probably already figured out, all of the attendees are currently on mute. During the presentations, the discussions, if you would like to participate, you can do so by raising your hand in the column next to your name and clicking on raising your hand, and that'll alert us that you want to participate, and we can let you into the discussion at that point. And you can also use the comment box. You can click on the chat box to be able to insert comments or questions, and we can try to address those as we go through that way as well. Obviously, the attendees also cannot be seen. You're just participating by the audio connection, whatever it is that you're using. That's basically it. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. The agenda, the other thing is that you should keep in mind that the invitations for this meeting have gone out generally to the NABT membership. And so anticipate that the audience includes trustees, assistants, associate members of the NABT that help out trustees, contractors, our vendors, and also members of the Office of the United States Trustee. I'll get started by talking about my most recent experience, which was 341s that were conducted yesterday. Yesterday, I had a list of 49 cases that had been assigned to me. A couple of them were continuances from earlier cases. And due to the governor's restrictions in the state of Pennsylvania and the closing of the courthouse in Philadelphia, obviously these could not be conducted by face-to-face meetings. And so the 1 week period leading up to yesterday, my staff and I spent time trying to come up with a system to conduct these meetings remotely using the technology that was available to us. And one of the beauties of being a member of the NABT is the ability to freely plagiarize all the work that other trustees have done in the past. And so looking out as to what was happening on the NABT listserv, checking the websites of various trustees that around the country that I know, are usually up on this even better, even more so than I am, cutting and pasting the ideas that I could get. I started to develop a system to be able to conduct the meetings using a remote conferencing program. I quickly chose the Zoom system to do it because it was the most fluent system that I could find that crossed all the different boundaries of all the different platforms that are out there. It didn't matter if you were participating by an Apple product or an Android product or even by a land-based telephone line. People could still participate. So that seemed extremely desirable to me, having in the past had to deal with conferencing through different other types of conferencing media and the problems that would result. We had to continually change the parameters of what we expected for the meeting throughout the course of the last week to 10 days because of the changes in the restrictions that were coming down. Initially, we planned to have the debtors, for example, go to their counsel's office and just be able to deal with the meetings that way. That plan was destroyed when we were issued with, basically shelter-in-place orders in Montgomery County, where most of my debtors are located, and then shortly following that, Philadelphia County. So then it turned on what would the debtors be able to use without being in the presence of their attorneys, and how could we accomplish meetings in that fashion. Just fortuitously, probably, not that I really thought it through, but Zoom seemed to be a good candidate for that. In fact, a lot of the debtors and debtors counsel already had some degree of familiarity with it as a result partially of the shelter in place orders that had already been put in place and had been using it for their own family communications or friends and colleagues kind of communications. And so as a result, yesterday, so we kept changing the parameters of what we would expect for a 341 meeting. I have a website that I use to provide general information about my practice. I copied that off of Kelly, I don't know, some time ago when I saw that she had such a great site. And it was the ideal platform using the site because I could frequently, very easily change the policy depending on what was happening on a day-to-day basis. And I would, rather than have to send out an email every time I made a change, I just encouraged debtors counsel to continue to look at the website so that they would know what the current situation was. I'm happy to say that yesterday, of the 49 cases I was assigned, I was able to conclude 32 of the meetings of creditors pretty much without too much difficulty. There were the occasional situation where you would have to sort of coach the parties on the other side as to what they needed to click on to be able to unmute their microphone or to engage their video camera, but it went pretty smoothly for those 32 cases. We had 13 cases that were continued primarily at the request of debtors counsel or debtor. They just felt that they were unable to participate. Some of them did not have access to adequate telephone equipment even. As most of you are probably aware, most internet packages now, and especially in some of the rural areas, are doing away with phone service as a part of that. And so some people are now relying completely on their cell phone for communication purposes, which should be a good thing in terms of participating by Zoom or something like this. But some of the debtors are in such bad shape that even those accounts have been shut down, and so they had really no way to participate. So they have been postponed indefinitely while we're trying to figure out how we're ultimately going to be able to accommodate those meetings. Some of them were temporary issues. When the initial order went out by the governor of Pennsylvania, he essentially dictated that legal practices were non-essential and prohibited people from going to their law offices. So some of the debtors' attorneys interpreted his order that they could not go to their office to collect their clients' files or including the identification information that they had in their files that I was requesting. And so that made it impossible for us to be able to verify the identity of their clients if the clients couldn't also connect through a video conferencing line. So some of them fall into that category. And then I did have 4 or 5 cases where just no one appeared. The debtors counsel didn't appear, and neither did the debtor, and so we'll just have to deal with that in the usual way.
Gary, does your court have a system in place right now or an order in place that all deadlines are extended?
Yes, our district, we're very fortunate. Our chief judge has been on top of the situation. She's entered 4 standing orders so far that apply to the cases in our district. One of the first standing orders extended all of the objection deadlines out until, I believe, mid-May to allow plenty of opportunity to continue, especially after the United States trustee for our region had issued a broad statement that all meetings of creditors would be continued, and then there was kind of a vague exception that people didn't really understand what that meant, and I think that concerned the chief judge, so she immediately issued the standing order to extend all the deadlines, which is a great breathing room feature. I still am asking when council comes to me requesting a continuance, I'm still asking that they fill out a joint motion, stipulation and order that extends the deadlines until 60 days after the meeting of creditors is continued. I prepared a form to that effect. I posted it on the website so it can be downloaded. I've had 4 attorneys that have already completed those and filed those, and two orders have already been entered, giving me that kind of broad protection in terms of the deadlines going forward.
So are you adjourning those cases out to a date certain, or?
No, because I have no idea. We did have a meeting with our assistant U.S. trustee this morning where there was some discussion about things about like continuance dates and how we would deal with that. We still don't have any clear direction on that, and we're not being pressured to necessarily continue things to a date certain just yet. We're waiting to hear what information will come down through the pipeline. So we're kind of on hold with that right now.
And remind me what region you're in.
Region 3.
Okay, I'm in Region 9, Ohio and Michigan. So.
Okay, so that you have the same U.S. trustee that we do, Andy Vera.
Yes, he's great.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was an acting assistant in our office for a while, so we got to know him pretty well, I think.
Okay. And so I didn't get pre-clearance for doing these meetings by Zoom from the assistant U.S. trustee. I just basically was scurrying around getting it done, and took the language in the U.S. trustee's notice to be pretty broad, that if we could, if debtors were willing to do it, debtors counsel was willing to do it and able to do it, that we should just do it. And my feeling personally is that's a good policy, because I foresee a lot of cases coming down the pipeline, and I don't think it would be good to keep continuing the cases out and creating essentially will be a backlog for what could be a big onslaught of cases anyway coming down the pipe. Also, I think this is probably going to last for a while, and so it's better to get something working, play with it a little bit, and keep it going so that we can keep the system flowing during these trying times.
So 2 weeks ago, I guess it was, I decided that I wouldn't be doing my meetings in person. I had meetings scheduled for the 17th, St. Patty's Day. And that decision was made before we had anything coming out of our district or our state. That was a Saturday. I sent an email out to the attorneys. I notified them that I wouldn't be doing meetings at the courthouse in person. I asked them to let me know if they were aware of any creditor attorneys who might appear, or creditors. I asked for their contact information either by FaceTime or Zoom, or I also have my own conference call number. And I'll give you a few more details on that in a minute. So that was a Saturday. I sent that email out. By Monday afternoon, we were getting direction from our U.S. trustee that we weren't to be doing any in-person meetings. My meetings were the next day. The debtors' attorneys were in the same location as their clients, typically the attorney's office. Obviously, going forward, we won't be doing something like that. Just a couple of days ago, I guess Tuesday night, our Governor Whitmer in Michigan put a stay-in-place order, stay-at-home order in place. So we're now under further restrictions. I do have meetings coming up on April 21st. I sent another email out, much like my last one. I'm happy to share that with anybody. Again, the same thing. I asked everybody's ability to use FaceTime. If not FaceTime, their ability to have access to a webcam or a camera phone. And if they can't do any of that in our district, we have been given conference call numbers to use. Regardless of how the debtor appears, I will be using the conference call number. That way, if somebody calls in, they'll have access to the meeting as well. We've been asked in our district to post on Pacer the adjourned information, including the telephone number. So it is possible that someone would call in having seen the docket. Again, I'm asking people, give me a heads up if there's anybody you know who might want to participate. I always copy the creditors' attorneys who typically participate in 341s in our districts. The one challenge I have this time that I really didn't have last time is the debtors will be by themselves. If we can video conference, I'm really quite comfortable confirming their identification. If it's by phone, I'm not quite sure yet how I want to do that. I expect that perhaps after we go on the record, I might ask the attorney to engage with his or her client a little bit and have a discussion, and for the attorney to gain some confidence that the person on the phone is the person who came to their office and worked with them. And then I would ask the attorney if they're going to appear, if the debtor's going to appear by telephone, to upload documents as to identification and proof of social security number before our meeting. And they can do that in our system. I think probably all the systems are set up at this point so that attorneys can upload documents securely into our systems, and that at a certain point, typically after the case is closed, those documents are electronically shredded in effect. So that's where we're at in our district. A couple of things I would recommend. Zoom, I got that idea from Tamara Ogier, so thank you. That works really well. Like Gary was saying, you typically can use that across platforms. If you're using it on a mobile product, you probably have to download the app. I use Uber Conference for my conference call service. The reason I went with that was it was able to provide me with a local number because I do live in a more remote area. I just wanted a local number that had my area code, but there are a couple other services out there. That service only cost me $15 per month for that call-in number. And I forget, I think I can have 50 or 100 people on the call all at once. With Zoom, with the free version, you can, your meetings I think can go no longer than 40 minutes, but you can have countless meetings. And for that reason, I like to break it up between FaceTime and Zoom because I know I'm not going to go over that limit if I start a meeting. The other thing I do suggest that worked well for me both last time and this time is in our district, we're scheduled at 6 cases per hour. So what I did is I designated in 10-minute increments everyone's time so that I didn't have everybody trying to get on the phone or get on the conference video at the same time. And they knew their time, and then I would reach out to them if that's how we were handling it, if it was by FaceTime.
I did go with the business account for Zoom. You can either pay, I think it's $15 a month on a month-to-month basis, or if you do a year contract, it comes out to like about $12 a month. But the reason that I did it is rather than have several short meetings during the day, I just open up one long meeting for the entire day and use the waiting room aspect. The Zoom actually works almost virtual, just like a virtual 341 with a waiting room and a meeting room. And so as people come into the meeting room, you can see them there. And then when the counsel and their client are both present, then you can invite them into the meeting room together. And then sometimes the identifier, if someone's calling in, for example, may not necessarily show the identity of the name of the debtor or whatever. You can, reach out to them, find out who they are, and then, invite them in or put them in or take them out very fluently and very easily. I found it very effective way to deal with everything. And then there's one platform. I'm a little simpler than you are, Kelly, so I just like to have one platform open for the day and just deal with that rather because of everything else that's going on. It's almost too much to bear sometimes.
We should probably talk about recording at meetings. I always use a little handheld DVR to record my meetings in addition to the official recording. That way, if I just want to run through a meeting, remember why I asked for something or what the conversation was, I can do that easily without asking U.S. Trustee's office for a copy of the tape. My AUST did ask that I retrieve the recorder from the courthouse, which is where I do my 341s. I'm the only trustee up here. So I retrieved that. I completed the form that you need to complete when you take government property home. It is possible that he could ask me to send that recorder to one of the other trustees who doesn't have their own recording device. But that's how I'll be recording my meetings at this point, is using the official recorder and still sending in my thumb drives.
And since we have the same U.S. trustee, we have the same policy here. I was asked to go and pick up the recorder from our local 341 room. We have several other panel trustees that go out to outlying areas, so they already have their own DVR recording device. And then one of our trustees, unfortunately, got the old device for the time being, but he was told today in our meeting that they'll be upgrading that to new equipment, so we'll all be the same. So that's very thoughtful, I think, for the U.S. Trustee's Office to do that for us, to make sure that we have an official record on their official equipment.
So do you think we should try to open this up for questions? I think we're all a little new to this technology, but.
Sure, we can try our best to, if anyone has any questions.
Or we could try our poll first. We have a little poll that we can ask a question of people.
You want to go ahead? Do you know how to do that, Kelly?
I think the brains of the operation, Jennifer, might be able to do that for us.
Okay, all right.
Would you mind putting that poll up?
It should be up.
Great, thank you. So please complete the poll. Jennifer will be able to share the results with us.
I wonder if folks can also weigh in on the question of the recording devices. If it's true that the U.S. trustees around the country all are requiring use of the official recorder, or is there some more flexibility that you might be able to use a different type of recording device? And if anyone has any advice on that, perhaps you can raise your hand and we can.
I see Jason Petit has his hand up. Let me invite him in and see what he has to say. Jason?
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. The question that I had, in our district, we've gone to kind of staggering cases every 10 minutes, just like Kelly mentioned. And, but they have these guidelines about how many people can be on the line at a certain time. So I was wondering kind of how you're handling it if people come in late, or, you know, like we normally be at a 341 meeting, it's common for people to kind of stagger in, but I think we just have to be much more diligent about being on time. So how do you handle those?
So yesterday, I amazingly had probably the most time efficient meetings ever. Usually the people come and go in the waiting room, and ours are 6 per hour, but it's 3 scheduled every half hour. And I'm always sitting there waiting because there's a client without their attorney or an attorney without the client, and there's always some delay with that. But yesterday I found that when the meetings were scheduled, the same scheduling, 3 every half hour, but there was never any difficulty in finding people to bring into the meeting room. I think maybe the technology makes it easier for them to log in early and sit there waiting to actually come in.
So was everyone able to see the results of the poll, or is that just available to us?
I think everyone else were able to see that, and we can do some of the other ones too. And I think that we had another hand raised, but then it went away. So I'm not sure.
No, Leonard Ackerman.
Oh, where'd he go? Yes.
I think I clicked. Are you? Can you hear us? Can we hear you?
And if you don't want to speak, you can type in a question and we can just read it anonymously.
Looks like Terry Dershaw has a question. And it's written out. Terry typed that rules of recordings be available through the NABT site.
And yes, we can put those on the site.
We have another question from Ray Obachowski. Oh, he says he's able to see the results. Okay, thank you, Ray.
Hi, Ray. Keep that beard clean.
And I can, do you want me to do one of the other, I can launch some of the other polls.
Okay.
And Leonard Ackerman is asking, how many cases do you suggest per hour? I think you both touched on that. What do you think?
Yeah, we're scheduled at 6 per hour, and I will tell you that that was just the right amount of time for me. Now, keep in mind, I was switching a little bit between technologies, but I would still stick with 1 case per 10 minutes, just because it just does take a little bit longer to move through it, I think, until everybody gets a little more used to things.
And being an older guy on the same technology, I think 6 per hour is ideal.
Okay.
You know, I wouldn't want to go more than that.
Yeah. But I will tell you, to reiterate or to reinforce what Gary was saying, I think I had 23 cases scheduled for that Tuesday. And again, mine was really at the last minute that we put this in place. But I was able to conduct all but 1 meeting. I even had a pro se debtor appear by FaceTime. So from my perspective, I was glad to keep the cases moving. And I'm also seeing cases continue to be filed in our district. And I'm concerned about a backlog if I don't keep these cases moving. I think probably from a debtor's perspective, they don't want deadlines like their discharge indefinitely delayed. And I also think we're going to get busy. So I'd rather get in front of this than get backlogged.
Kelly and Gary, what's your advice regarding use of the interpreter service? How were you able to do that? Did that work out okay, or did you not have the opportunity to do that?
I don't have a lot of use for interpreters in Northern Michigan, and I didn't have any at this meeting, but I would have them call in to the conference call number at the designated time, or we can call out, I think, from that number. So.
Okay, I'd be interested in hearing from everyone on the phone, the attendees, what your experiences have been, or what you think your experience might be coordinating that.
I know that in Philadelphia, we frequently have a lot of use for the InterpreTalk line. I was prepared to use my my cell phone on speaker to bring them into the conference, not knowing how the interpreter would otherwise be able to participate. But I didn't have to use one. We didn't have a need for that yesterday. So I really couldn't think of any other way to try to bring them in. It's not a great solution. My other practice, maritime law, we do a lot of international depositions and things like that. And when you do have to do it, like secondhand through different layers of technology like that, it's very difficult to get the job done.
And I see that Fred Helmstead has said as well that he plans to use his cell phone for the interpreter. It seems like that's a pretty good option, just to have the cell phone sitting there on your desk while everyone is logged in to GoToMeeting or Zoom or whatever you're using.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask this question. What about notice? Has your clerk's office agreed to send out a different type of notice? Of course, the standard notice tells the debtor where to go and at what time and what date, and tells, of course, the creditors. What's been your experience so far?
So we're
that was one of the topics we had with in our discussions with the assistant U.S. trustee this morning. They've been talking to the clerk's office to see what might be available. They seem to be very concerned about creditors getting notice and getting an opportunity to participate in the meetings. For my meetings yesterday, I created a sort of a notice form, ran it through the software, and created PDFs and uploaded them onto the docket for all the cases. even though they weren't continued cases, it just told the creditors that if you wanted to participate, you should either contact the trustee or debtors counsel for the login information. Very time consuming, very tedious. There was no way to batch file it. There's got to be a better solution. I'm hoping our discussions with the US trustee this morning would, maybe result in some better solution.
Yeah, we don't have anything set up yet in our district. I'm hopeful maybe the clerk's office will do something along those lines. I did post a notice at the bankruptcy court where we conduct our 341s that I posted the U.S. trustees notice that we were not doing any in-person meetings. Again, that came out shortly before our stay-at-home order. And then I also posted the 3 trustees who hold meetings up here, their names and their contact information, and asked anyone appearing for a meeting to call those numbers at once. I would be surprised if someone who was aware of the stay-at-home order and wanted to appear to 341 didn't reach out to the trustee in advance just to make sure the meetings were even going. We'll have to see how this plays out because at this point, our stay-at-home order goes through April 13th, and my meetings aren't until April 21st. So if that order is lifted, I may simply be at the courthouse in case anybody shows up there, but still conduct the meetings by video if possible. Hard to say.
We have a question from Linda Buai. Can you explain how you record the meetings and transmit them to the Office of the U.S. Trustee? Is there a tracking number?
So we were, I was asked to pick up the recorder from the trustee room. Our recorders use flash drives to, record the information from the meeting. One of the analysts asked me to confirm how many meetings that we would be able to collect onto one flash drive, because normally we FedEx those back to the U.S. trustee's office and then they offload the cases and send it back to us within a matter of days. But there's no one working in the U.S. trustee's office because that's in the federal courthouse that has been closed in Philadelphia. And so I've been asked just to record more than one meeting on the flash drive, and in the meantime, we'll figure out how to offload that. That's another issue that's still under further consideration as things develop in Philadelphia.
So in our district prior to this, we would simply do the same thing, send a thumb drive to the U.S. trustee's office. They would offload the files, send it back to us. And these new recorders do keep a copy of all those recordings for, I think it's 30 days. So if something happens to that thumb drive in transit, they can get another copy off of the recorder. Going forward, we plan to do the same thing. Again, I have the recorder, I have my thumb drive. We've had meetings weekly and now twice a week with our AUST, and they are having people come in for certain activities. So in our state, I can go in and I can check the mail and do basic functions to keep my business running at a bare minimum, basically. So I'll continue the same process. There might be a bit of a delay in getting the thumb drive back, but.
Can one of you, Kelly, you've had now the experience, I guess both of you, with Zoom. Is it a free service or do you pay? I think you were saying there's some cost.
Yeah, so you can sign up for a free account. The free account gives you unlimited Zoom meetings, but each meeting can last no more than 40 minutes. So if you want to have a more efficient approach like Gary's doing, you'd want the paid version, and Gary can speak a little bit more about that, but it's free to, you can sign up for the free account and it's free for everybody. The app to download is free if you need the app for a mobile device. If you're working just on a computer with a webcam, you wouldn't need to download the app.
I see.
And I have to say the pay version does have some nice features. I don't think you have a waiting room in the free version, and the waiting room for me is fantastic. I'd like to point out my software provider, in conjunction with me, deciding to go with Zoom, pointed out to me that You know, there are some security vulnerabilities with Zoom. They're not anything that you know, is out of the ordinary or bizarre. But I did collect some information, a really good article about that, and about how to protect yourself from any of those. And I posted it on my website at the bottom. I had a lot of feedback from the bar, the debt consumer bar, as I was trying to develop these practices, a lot of questions they asked. So I already have at the bottom of my page 4 questions that, you know, seem to be of some concern, and the security issue was one of the concerns. So I put the link for the article there so people can see what they can do. I mean, the security concerns are things like employers can use Zoom to monitor their employees to determine whether they're actually paying attention to a meeting like this. You know, things like that that people might not be aware of, that Zoom is collecting that data for use. So if anyone has any questions about that, they can just check, just Google Gary Sites as trustee, and you'll see a COVID-19 webpage, and it has my policy procedures, and then the questions at the bottom about, you know, concerns that some of the debtor bar had about, you know, using it.
We have a couple of comments as well. Linda just responded that she has 8 trustees in Riverside, California, but there's only 2 recorders. And Fred Helsmet is using freeconferencecall.com, and he mentioned that each call can last up to 6 hours. And then we also had a question from Elizabeth. If you are still mailing or overnight mailing thumb drives or SSD cards to your UST, ask about getting approved to upload the MP3 files to the JEFS box account, that it works well.
Yeah, let's first address the Linda's comment about the 8 trustees in Riverside and only 2 recorders. That may be a problem where I am also in Northern Virginia, because we have just 1 recorder apparently, and I think there are now, what I'm saying, 4.5 trustees. 1 trustee is only taking half cases, half the number. And so we haven't figured out how to get the recorder transported if we're going to do it that way. We could all go in on our appointed days to the hearing room, but the idea is to try to avoid that, because they're in busy parts of town, although maybe not so busy anymore. And I'm wondering if people are seeing any flexibility by the U.S. trustee. For example, would it be fine just to record on any kind of recorder, provided the audio file is the type that's readily that works on any sort of computer, so a WAV file or MP3 file and so forth. So if anyone has any thoughts on that, please tell us.
I think I've heard it expressed that there's that kind of flexibility in our region. I don't think any of us in our district are at that point just yet. But I remember talk about, you know, if you can use your phone to record an MP3, anything, I think they'll accept it right now. But, you know, kudos to the U.S. Trustee's Office. I feel like they're giving us a lot of discretion, a lot of guidance, and they're working really well in our district and region with us. So we're lucky.
I see Nancy Isaacson in New Jersey says they have 2 recorders they're sharing, and they do some sort of drug deal in the parking lot where they hand it off. I don't know how often, but it sounds, oh, she says, ugh. So I guess, Nancy, you don't like that too much either. But I guess that is, I guess you use gloves, right?
Yeah, you take your Lysol with you and have it in the trunk. Yeah. And there was a debtor's attorney in Philadelphia that was driving around to pick up petitions from his clients, so that he would have a wet signature in his office. So he would drive up and let them know he was there, pop his trunk, and they would come out and deposit the paperwork into his trunk. I thought it was a very creative way to get the job done. Now our chief judge has issued that's one of our standing orders now, probably as a result of that video he did, that wet signatures are not required now in our district.
And there is a comment question from Jason Petty. Have you ever attempted to upload your 341 recordings via a service like Dropbox or Google Drive? That seems like a good approach.
It does, but we've never been asked to do that, so we're not.
We've been told that there's a security flaw, that the Department of Justice doesn't want to collect data through those kind of services. So we've never been able to do it that way.
Okay. And Dwayne Murray in
Hi, Dwayne.
Louisiana, Middle District, Louisiana. Our U.S. trustee has purchased a recorder for each trustee.
Wow.
I suggested making a request immediately for the purchase.
Yes.
Suggest that we do that. And, that seems like too easy, Dwayne. That's a great idea. I think I'll do that.
They may have some COVID-19 money to be able to do that now too.
Maybe they have some extra money. I don't know if there was anything in that big $2 trillion package for recorders. Okay, Jennifer, should we do the next question?
The next polling question, yes, we can
Yes.
go through a few of those real quick.
Are you located in a city or state that is under a stay-at-home or lockdown order?
While you're responding, I'll add another thing about Zoom. Rather than have the other parties observe me while the meeting was taking place, I elected to just put up my profile picture, which is a picture of me sitting in the 341 room in Philadelphia. I felt that was more official looking than the alternative.
And I think I heard about that, Gary. Someone had emailed me saying in our district, we just have this trustee who appears like the Wizard of Oz. I guess that was you.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Okay, we have an answer. We have results. Jennifer, would you read out the results? Oh, there it is. 88%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you working remotely away from your primary work location? That's a real good question.
So how many trustees, when this happened, opened up their trustee disaster recovery plan to the chapter that dealt with pandemics?
Good point. Good point. The all-knowing, all-seeing trustee.
Not me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of surprised that we have about 20%. Well, I'm not sure if we worded this carefully enough. Are you working remotely away from your primary work location? That could mean that people are going to their own office to do this, to do their 341s. I wonder if, I don't know. I mean, is anyone going to the regular hearing rooms?
Let me pose, I have that question, hang on.
And while we're waiting, Linda also asked the question, do you use a questionnaire at the 341s? How do you suggest handling that? I can answer that. I do use a questionnaire, and my service provider allows me to attach it, a blank, to the email that is sent out upon my appointment to all the debtors' attorneys. And there's, in big bold letters, it says, please download or print out this questionnaire, complete it, and bring it along to the 341. And what I plan on doing is asking them to simply do the same thing and then email it back to me, or at least upload it. I'll probably say upload it into the portal. So that may be useful. All right, so are you, let's see, what's the next question, Jennifer? Are you conducting 341s at this time? We have 60% say yes, 36 no, and 4% other.
What is the other? Can anybody, maybe you're not conducting 341s because you're not a trustee, or is there something else for the other answers? Telepathically?
They can raise their hand or they can type an answer.
Well, clearly no one's doing them in person. That's interesting.
Okay.
So how else can we help our membership? What would you like to see from us? Do you think another one of these calls in a week would be helpful?
I'll let everyone know that there has been good communication with the executive office. Some of us in NABT leadership have met on the phone with Cliff White. We've done it twice so far since the crisis began. And there's another call scheduled, I think it's going to be Monday, where we just communicate back and forth. And the bottom line with the executive office is that they're delegating decisions on some of the issues that we've been discussing, essentially how to conduct the 341 under these circumstances and all the aspects of it. They're delegating it to the regional U.S. trustees with the thought that one size doesn't fit all, and there's different customs in different parts of the country. And we all know that to be true. So that may change. There may be a different approach as time goes on. The one edict that came from the U.S. The executive office is that there will be no in-person 341s until further notice. All right, so we have some responses. Let's see, Martin Seifert says that in Region 10, they had a conference call with all the Northern District of Indiana trustees Wednesday. And he's got more to say. It is stated it will purchase enough recorders. A U.S. trustee will purchase enough recorders so each trustee has one. We have two current ones and an old one that I'm picking up today. So I guess Marty got the old one. Also, the Region 10 U.S. trustees providing each of us with a designated conference line, and the information for calling will be provided in the notice of the 341 meeting. We will have 6 cases per hour. Each case will be scheduled individually every 10 minutes. So very, very helpful, Marty. Thank you.
Great.
Elizabeth Andrus says that it would be helpful to have more of these virtual meetings. Things are still evolving. Yes, as I think we said at the beginning, we're going to try to do it once a week going forward until further notice. Stephen Chip, do you think the wet signatures will be lifted nationally or district by district? Any thoughts on that, guys?
My guess would be district by district. I mean, again, you've got judges who operate so differently, and can't imagine it coming out from national.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to have to be a local practice kind of approach.
And very important question from David Watkins, our friend on the board. He wants to know that since debtors will be at home during the 341 meeting, is it permissible to drink alcohol during the meeting? And you mean can the trustees drink or can the debtors drink? Well, so you'll let us know. You have to clarify.
Well, I can tell you from yesterday, one thing that the Debtors Council might want to keep in mind is what exactly the trustee's seeing on the camera. Because one of the debtors yesterday had a artifact hanging on the wall behind him that I'm sure was a valuable antique, and that piqued my interest. Turned out it was not his house, it was his parents' house. But
well, it's a silver lining that we may discuss. Can you ask that the camera be, walked around the house?
Yeah, while you're there, could you just walk into the
Kill 2 birds. Question, will e-signatures work instead? I guess Steve and Chip is asking that instead of the wet signature.
Yeah, I think it's just going to depend on the district.
Yeah.
I think that's an area in which we've been given flexibility. So if we are limited
Right.
to conducting a particular meeting by telephone, clearly you can't tell whether the debtor has that in front of them. My email that I sent out last time and this time again asked that the debtor's attorneys ensure that the debtors have copies of those signature documents at the time of the meeting. So when I did them by video, I was able to see that they were looking at the papers and confirming their signature. By phone, you're just going to have to walk through it.
And Stephen is also asking with respect to affidavits and declarations. Well, I think those can be scanned and sent around. So if you have, we're speaking, I guess, in litigation, things you have to follow with the court, and I think that's probably okay. But
Yeah,
again,
and I saw some that were photographed, just using your cell phone and then transmitted, forwarded that way. And keep in mind, 28 USC, I think it's 1748, you don't need a notary, you just swear under penalty of perjury, and that's effective as an affidavit.
Yeah, declaration. And do keep in mind, you don't want to be asking debtors, attorneys, or debtors to text identification or proof of social security number for PII reasons. But you could ask them to upload that into your system the same way they do tax returns, etc.
Right.
and a question from Leonard Ackerman. What's the earliest and latest hours in the day you conduct your meetings?
I started at 8 p.m., 8 a.m., and I went to 5 p.m. yesterday, or 4:30 p.m.
It took you the whole day.
Took the whole day.
Yeah, our cases are generally scheduled starting at 9 and ending at 4 o'clock with 4 o'clocks. The other day when I had my case scheduled with the pro se debtor, she had an autistic son and the 1 o'clock meeting didn't work. So I just did her later in the afternoon at a time that worked for both of us. And I think that ended up being about 3 o'clock.
All right, well, we're at the end of the hour. It's 2:30, and so that is our time to sign off. And as we said, we will be hopefully doing another one of these next week. You'll get notice. Keep your eye on the listserv. Anything else in closing, Gary, Kelly?
Again, Jason, thank you for the opportunity. I think it's been very helpful. I've even learned some things today, so fantastic.
Yeah, and I know our vendors have been supporting us through this. I know our vendor has made some specific outreaches. So just want to thank our vendors for all their ongoing support during this crazy time.
And we will have a survey after this. I think it will appear on your screen, and if not, it'll at least be emailed to you. If you don't mind just responding to that, it'll give us some feedback on future topics. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer, for all your work.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You guys.
Thank you. Take care. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.